Compost! That's all. That's all I got for you. It's an exciting thing. I love compost because it's something you can do at home, whether you're in an apartment or a townhouse or a standalone house, or you have a big yard or a small yard. Composting is so accessible to so many people, but it can be overwhelming to get started. And it can also be overwhelming to know what sources and resources are available here in Montgomery County, Maryland. So let's first talk about just kind of two different scales of composting. And by scales, I mean like how much it can handle. So the two different scales are something you can do at home. That's kind of what I alluded to originally, as well as commercially. But let's talk about at home first. So if you're composting at home, this might look a couple different ways. You might have an outside bin like you see here in this picture. And this is just using pallets to just put all sorts of stuff like in a bin. You can also put a bin inside. Compost, if you're doing it right, actually shouldn't smell. You shouldn't even notice it's there. It is nature doing nature things. Things are decomposing all the time. And soil is really good at trapping in those smells. But here's the thing. If you're composting at home, there's some things that you really shouldn't be putting into your compost pile. So the first thing is no meat and dairy products. And this is honestly more out of convenience for you. Meat and dairy products, when they go bad, they smell horrible and they go rotten and they attract pests. So that decomposing meat and dairy will attract rats and mice. And especially if you have an outdoor one, honestly, even if you have an indoor one, like that's going to be a huge issue. Composting relies on heat and bacterial activity to break down stuff. Unfortunately, at your home, well, this could be fortunately, I'm not really sure. But at your home, you are not doing this on a big enough scale to get your compost pile hot enough and decomposing enough to really effectively go through meat and dairy products. Along that same line, same with compostable products. So if you buy a plate that says it's compostable, or you buy silverware, or I know McDonald's recently, their cups say they're compostable. That stuff you just can't compost at home. It is not going to break down. It's funny, I actually saw a bag, like a vegetable bag that a student gave me 2 years ago. And they're like, oh, it's compostable. And I was like, oh yeah, but that's not something you can do at home. And then sure enough, you look at the label, it actually does say viable for at-home composting. So I put it in my vermicompost bin. That's what this word is down here, vermicompost or vermicomposting. This is referring to composting with worms. So I have a worm bin in my classroom. It doesn't smell. I put this bag in there 2 years ago. It is still not broken down. So I'd also be wary about things that do say you can compost it at home. Honestly, the only thing you should compost at home is like fruits and vegetables. Everything else you're going to have to start considering commercially, which we'll talk about in a moment. Vermicomposting is really nice because not only are you relying on bacterial decomposition, but these worms are helping break things down as well. I have a pretty small vermicompost bin at my work, and I probably put about a pound of food in there a week. And every week when I go to add more food, it's gone. Composting doesn't happen that fast. So vermicomposting is a way to kind of accelerate it. And you can order worms on Amazon. You can probably dig them out of the ground as well, but you can also order them on Amazon. So making it even more accessible. But let's say you want to compost meat and dairy or compostable things. You're going to have to start looking commercially or wide scale. Now again, this is going to be specific to Montgomery County, Maryland, and I'm going to split up commercial composting into two different types of waste. Let's start with yard waste. So in the county, we actually have trucks that do weekly collections of your yard waste. This can be grass clippings, leaves, sticks. They'll do logs like up to a certain size. So anything that kind of grew out of your backyard, they will collect for free every week as part of your regular trash and recycling pickup. There is a huge composting facility in Dickerson, and if you watched my other video about solid waste management, Dickerson is the same place where our waste to energy incinerator is, so where we burn our trash and create electricity. It's actually on the same compound. They're owned by different people though, or facilitated by different people. So these trucks are going to take all of this yard stuff they're going to drive it to Dickerson. And they actually will drive it to Dickerson, unlike what was happening with our waste, because the scale of this kind of composting is so much smaller than our trash. At that composting facility, we are talking, you can kind of see in this picture, we got huge rows of compost. They're using heavy machinery to be churning it over, getting lots of oxygen in there. And you get all of this heat because of all of these bacteria working on it. And eventually, what our county is doing is they're turning it into a product called leaf grow, something that you can buy at, Home Depot and Lowe's, but also at local garden centers. So it was grown in Montgomery County and it's returning back to Montgomery County. So it's a really cool kind of full circle. Now, it's not free. You do have to pay for leaf grow, but it's comparable in price. Like it's not like so much more expensive than other brands. Like if anything, it's a little bit cheaper, but it's not free. That's yard waste. Now, food waste, which might be what you're more concerned about when you're thinking about your own personal waste. Commercial composting facilities can handle meat, dairy, and compostable products. Here's another view of, again, what a commercial facility looks like. We're using heavy machinery. We've got a lot of it. We can make compost and we can make it fast. So commercial composting facilities get hot enough and have enough decomposition happening that they can handle these harder to process products. However, looking at Montgomery County, we don't have county-wide services for composting. So we do for yard waste, but not for food waste. And you should not add your food waste to the yard waste container. If they see it, they're not even going to take it. So there's a couple of different things that you can do. Firstly, you can, invest in it yourself. There are various private companies. These are probably the two biggest ones in our area, the Compost Crew and the Veteran Compost, where they will do weekly or bi-weekly pickups of your compost. It is something you have to pay for. Last time I looked, it was $35 a month, which, depending on where you are in your life, that might not be a lot or that might be a lot. But know that it is an option. If you're not going to compost it at home and you're not able to do commercial composting, or of your food waste, you can always do private composting. The county is trying to address this though. They want to be able to provide food waste composting. So there's a couple of different things happening, and this is all relatively new. So there is a little bit of a distinction within Montgomery County. There are 3 incorporated cities in Montgomery County that can enact their own rules. So they can set their own laws and initiatives that are outside of what the county provides. At the same time, though, because of this extra independence, they also don't get all of the same Montgomery County services. So know that it's a trade-off for them. So those 3 cities are the cities of Gaithersburg, Rockville, and Tacoma Park. So Gaithersburg and Rockville have actually developed initiatives related to food waste. So they're doing drop-off sites. So they have locations within their cities where residents can take all of the different food scraps, their compostable materials, their dairy, their eggshells, their meat, their bones. They can take all of that stuff and go to the drop-off site. The one in Rockville, for example, is a series of trash bins that are accepting all that. You just dump it in there and that's it. So pretty easy to do. Tacoma Park actually has a full trucks driving by your house, picking up compost, like a full-on program. I say it's a full-on program. It's still in its early stages. So right now you have to opt in. So if you live in the city of Tacoma Park, start Googling this. You actually have composting available to you, but you do have to opt in to the program. In the future, that might change where it's just everyone's in. But again, this is still relatively new. Now, Montgomery County as a whole, so as a county, as like a legislative body, so ignoring these incorporated cities, the county as a whole, they are doing a pilot program. So they are looking to create a food waste composting program for the county that has 1 million residents, but they want to make sure that it's actually viable. So they're doing small programs in the Bethesda, Rockville area, in Potomac, and in Silver Spring. And I don't think, is this going to work? Hold on, let me change my cursor because I would like to show you guys the map, because maybe you guys seeing this is going to inspire you to be like, oh, I want to go and opt into these programs. And these are opt-in programs. So let's cross our fingers that this is going to share nicely. And it looks like it is. Maybe. See, if I was thinking ahead, I just would have had the map on my slide. Oh, welcome to our new website. Cool. So it doesn't work. All right. What I will do is in the comments box or in the description of this video, I'll put that link up for you guys. So you can see on this map the different areas that are under this, this pilot program for composting. And if it goes well, we might be seeing county-wide composting in a few years. So if you're in those areas, definitely opt in to help them get more data into how successful this can be. So it's cool, like you yourself producing waste, here's the things you can do. But what about large producers? School cafeterias, for example, restaurants. They're producing tons of food waste because of the people that are coming there. So what's happening with them? So we're actually going to get a little bit larger. We're going to look at the state of Maryland for this, because that's kind of where some laws are coming in. So in the state of Maryland, a law just went into effect for certain areas. So if it is a school or a cafeteria, not restaurants. So restaurants are not included this. So if you're a school or a cafeteria, this food waste law is going to apply to you. If your facility is within 30 miles of a composting facility, you have to do some sort of composting program. Now, the state recognizes that if you're not making that much compost and you're far away, it's not going to be super viable for you. So this is only for schools or cafeterias, so think of like food halls, that produce over 1 ton of food waste a week. So if you produce over a ton of food waste, you live 30 miles, or the building is 30 miles of a composting facility, and it's either a school or cafeteria, then you have to compost your food waste. Now, they don't have to do it on site. They can hire a company to come pick up their food waste. It's just they need to do something about their food waste. They can't just throw it out, is really what the law says. Again, we're going to see if this works and see how well prepared I was. So this is a map looking at the 30-mile radius of composting facilities. So what you're going to hopefully see in a moment, at some point, it's loading, it's thinking over here on the left, is you're going to see these 30-mile buffers. There we go. Okay. These 30-mile buffers around these different composting facilities. As you can see, most of the state of Maryland does fall within 30 miles of a composting facility, but some places would be exempt. So just know, like, most of the state is covered, just not all of it, technically. All right. Now in Montgomery County, so again, that's a state law, because if it's a company that's in Montgomery County, they've got to follow the state law. The county is trying to help out not just our schools or our food halls, but they're also trying to help out restaurants too. So Montgomery County developed a commercial food scraps recycling partnership program. I'm sure it has an acronym, but we're going to stick with that. And essentially what they do is the county tries to act as a liaison between these providers that end up with a lot of food waste and how to get it to a composting facility. So they'll provide, food scrap recycling carts, compostable liners to put in those carts so those carts aren't getting as gross. For a short period of time, the county will actually help, like physically help, get their food scraps, deliver it to a composting facility. And then they'll also provide training and education materials for the people of that establishment to help them to reduce their food waste and to properly dispose of their food waste. So it's not a permanent program. It's really Montgomery County saying, hey, we're going to help you get started with this, but eventually we're going to let our hands, off the reins, and you're going to have to take over. But, sometimes that initial getting into it can be really hard. So this can be really beneficial to a lot of companies. So there you have it. We've got compost in Montgomery County. There's things you can do at home, and there's things that are happening commercially. There's some cool things happening in the county, And maybe another 5 years, I'm going to make a new video on composting about all the cool things we're currently doing. But again, go check out those opt-in programs or those pilot programs, because you can be part of the reason why they make a county-wide program.